Today is all about overdrive pedals. This is IkeGuitar. Let's dive in. What's going on, guys? IkeGuitar here, and today we're talking all about overdrive pedals. Now, I say overdrive pedals, but I'm going to be talking about distortion and fuzz as well. Really important for you guys to know, especially you beginning guitarists, especially when you're getting started out, building your own pedal board and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's get into this. So I think a little bit of background is important. See, when I was starting guitar, I had an idea of what overdrive was, but my main shtick was distortion. You see, I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music when I was growing up. It was only gospel music and Christian music, and it didn't have a whole lot of distortion or overdrive in it until I learned that there were other bands out there outside of the Gaither vocal band. I know, I'm ancient. But anyway, overdrive pedals are really great, and I didn't get any overdrive pedals until I was like, 15 or 16 years old. I've been playing acoustic for some time. I thought overdrive sounded cool, and I liked metal music when I could sneak it in. And so I thought, man, I bet I could like overdrive a little hotspot. I used that in my church, and so I grabbed an acoustic guitar and a hotspot, and the hotspot is pretty much like a powered monitor. Well, at that point it was passive, but it was a little monitor speaker, and I plugged it into my acoustic guitar, and I overdrove the preamp on my guitar, and voila, out came some grit and overdrive, essentially. But it wasn't very good sounding, but it was enough for a young kid like me to play his acoustic guitar in drop D, and that was truly a special time. So I'm going to give you guys a little snippet into the world of overdrive, a little primer, so to speak, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. But let's begin. What really is overdrive? You see, overdrive is essentially when you take an amp and you put a bunch of volume in it and it begins to break up. I mean, we have tons of terms for this. I mean, obviously breakup is the main one, but you also got dirt or grit. And essentially every amp has its breaking point. Overdrive can be subtle or not so subtle. And what an overdrive seeks to do is cause that effect to happen earlier in the gain stage, which means that I may have a guitar amp, and that amp is definitely not overdriving, but it's actually very clean, and my guitar pedal is going to put that guitar into overdrive way sooner than the amp ever would, and at a lower volume. So you can get that really crunchy, really dirty sound without having to jack your amp up to 11. Thanks, Spinal Tap. Anyway, so we're going to go through overdrive a little bit. We'll talk about the other variants as well, distortion and fuzz. So overdrives come in all shapes and sizes. The most common circuits you'll find on overdrive is the TS-808 circuit. That's a classic Ibanez tube screamer, well known throughout the rock world. Blues guitarists use it, rock guitarists use it, and if you jam it up really high, tube screamers get a really great distorted sound. It sounds really, really great, really, really smooth. But at subtle volumes, it gets really like ambient, adds a little texture to your playing, and overall sounds really tasty. And so if you're going to get an overdrive first, I highly recommend getting a basic TS-808 circuit. I have this pedal from Behringer. This is the vintage tube overdrive. It's a lot of fun. It sounds just like an 808 circuit. You can't beat it. And for $30, it's a great beginning overdrive pedal for you guys to use. So I highly recommend picking up this Behringer pedal. So there are other overdrive pedals out there. JHS makes several of them. I personally have their double barrel, which contains two overdrives in one. But the JHS Bonsai is a great example of a bunch of different tube screamer circuits to give you that overdrive taste. And then obviously getting a Ibanez TS-808. But you don't have to get a vintage Ibanez tube screamer. You can get a new one. They'll sound just fine, albeit a little more expensive. Next, we have transparent overdrives. So transparent overdrives are really subtle, and they really allow the retainment of the tonal relationship between your guitar and your amplifier. So when you plug into a tube screamer, typically it's going to really color your sound. A transparent overdrive simply means that there is no EQ changes from pedal to amp, and so you can get a really transparent sound and retain the tonal quality of your amp or guitar you're playing it through. Transparent drives are great for keeping the natural tones of your rig without going super over the top, and transparent drives are typically used in worship, ambient rock, and other alternative music. Great examples will be the Paul Cochran Timmy. It's a great transparent overdrive. We've got the JHS Morning Glory or the Wampler Tumnus. The Wampler Tumnus is based off of, obviously, the faun from Chronicles of Narnia, but is referencing the Golden Horsey, which is the Clon Centaur. Now, regarding getting overdrive pedals, they can get really expensive, but thankfully there are a few ways you can cut the cost of your favorite drives. I mentioned getting the vintage tube screamer from Behringer, really cheap, like 30 bucks or less. You can get them and they sound really great. Combination circuits are going to give you the best bang for your buck. The JHS double barrel, the JHS Sweet Tea, even stuff like the Strymon Sunset and the Keeley Tone Workstation have several pedal circuits in one stomp box, saving you precious coinage. And then the purchase on the buy sell trade site, go to Facebook, go to Craigslist, find you an old tube screamer or a beaten up one. Pedals sound great on the aftermarket. Pedals don't really sound worse over time. They all pretty much sound the same because they're all electronics. And so even if your tube screamer is beat up, if you can nab one for 50 bucks, totally worth it. You can get big tone on the budget. And then before you go buy a bunch of Overdrive pedals, go to your local guitar center, try out a bunch of Boss pedals, try out a bunch of, Behringer pedals. You can even pull one off the shelf, off the effects rack, and use one of those. You're going to find that it's a whole lot better if you have a reference for your sound, and going to a guitar center is a great way to try out effects without having to purchase one. It's really easy to do that. So before I go, a couple more things. So first off, what an overdrive is not. An overdrive is not a distortion pedal. Distortions are a much harder gain clipping pedal outside of an overdrive, and so, I'll do a whole video on distortion, but here are some examples of a distortion pedal. So the classic one is going to be the Rat. I mean, the Rats are known far and wide for having that distortion-like taste, but also getting into the fuzz world. And the Rats are very inexpensive, but it's a good way of getting into the distortion world right off the bat. So the other option is to use a fuzz. Behringer has a great entry-level fuzz, the SF300. Highly recommend getting one of these fuzzes. It sounds really good, and honestly, unless you really know what you want out of a fuzz, you're not going to go off and buy a really expensive one. So I really recommend the budget-friendly SF300 by Behringer. And then we've also got another distortion pedal. This is my personal distortion pedal I got when I was a kid. I wanted to be really metal, so I got me a Boss ML2. This thing is really special, the yellowing and all. Definitely not the Boss Metal Zone, don't be confused. But this sucker is distortion, true and true, really hardcore, and it helped me get metal, even though I was playing this pedal with my acoustic guitar. That was a special time. And then finally we've got amps in a box, not to be confused with overdrives, distortions, or fuzzes. Amps in a box are typically going to make the sound of a classic amplifier that you know and love. Most common are going to be, Marshall plexi circuits, similar to, like a JHS Moonshine would be a good example of a plexi circuit amp in a box. This one is the Plexi Drive Deluxe from Wampler. Wampler also makes the Tumnus, and it's a really great sounding drive. Amp in a box pedal, sorry, but it's going to sound just like a Marshall. So you're not going to want to stack a bunch of these pedals together. It's not going to sound super duper great. So to finish up, overdrives don't work well with every single amp. Make sure your amp handles pedals well. They have things called pedal platform amplifiers, but really any old Fender is going to work with an amp with pedals of your choice. Anything from Vox. A Vox SC30 will work with pedals really well. So will some like divided by 13 amps, but things like Marshalls and other really high gain amplifiers, Mesa Boogies, they aren't going to take pedals as well as a Fender will. So if you're going to buy an overdrive pedal, you're going to want to get a Fender, because those Fenders will stay nice and clean, have plenty of headroom for you, and they won't go into distortion mode like a Mesa or another amp would. So I hope you've enjoyed this video on overdrive. You guys should totally go check out an overdrive and go play one and get a handle on what kind of sound you want to come from your guitar rig. Obviously, the 808 circuit's going to be your best bet. Get that Behringer. It's going to sound really great on your rig no matter where you are, and it'll work out for a while. And then when you're ready to get a brand new overdrive, you can splurge a little bit of money on that or buy one aftermarket. You're going to find that you're going to get a lot more value getting more out of your tone on the cheap than getting more out of your tone that's really expensive. So don't spoil yourself quite yet. Go find a great overdrive and use it. And let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite overdrive. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. I can't get famous unless I get subscribers. So make sure you subscribe for more great guitar content, as well as following me on Instagram at IkeGuitar. You're not going to want to miss what I post there. I post ramblings about life, some demos here and there. It's a whole lot of fun. Go check me out. And thank you so much for watching this video. Really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time on IkeGuitar. Peace.